A young millionaire was surprised by the response of a beggar woman and her baby when offering help. The woman said this to him. Lucas, a young millionaire known for his fast-paced lifestyle and impatience, was on his way to a crucial meeting that could define the future of his company. The clock on his wrist was ticking away precious minutes, and the torrential rain pouring over the city didn't help. His luxury car, a symbol of his success, slid through the wet streets as he clenched his teeth, frustrated by the traffic building up ahead of him. Why did this have to happen today? He grumbled to himself, as the sound of rain pounding on the car roof mixed with his tumultuous thoughts. Every second felt like an eternity, and the pressure of the upcoming meeting made him feel a crushing weight on his shoulders. He knew the investors wouldn't tolerate delays, and the idea of losing such an important opportunity made him furious. As the car moved slowly, Lucas observed the hurried pedestrians under their umbrellas, all trying to escape the storm. He passed by a street where a woman, soaked and desperate, tried to shield her baby from the rain with a piece of plastic. The sight was unsettling, but Lucas was too focused on his own problems to care. Life in the big city was relentless, and he had learned to harden his heart to survive. As the traffic light turned red once again, Lucas drummed his fingers impatiently on the steering wheel. His mind was a mess, and he could only think about the numbers, projections, and charts he would need to present in a few minutes. If only this traffic would move, he exclaimed, hitting the dashboard. His frustration was overflowing, and he felt like he was on the verge of a breakdown. Suddenly, a memory from his childhood surfaced in his mind. He remembered his mother, always calm and compassionate, telling him that sometimes things happen for a reason. Back then he didn't give much importance to her words, but now, stuck in traffic, those words seemed to echo in his head. Something inside him began to change, an uncomfortable feeling he couldn't ignore. When the light finally turned green, Lucas felt an inexplicable urge. Instead of moving forward, he maneuvered the car to the side of the street and stopped near the woman and her baby. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but something inside him pushed him to act. He got out of the car, feeling the cold rain soak his expensive suit, and approached the woman. "Hey, do you need help?" he asked, his voice softer than he intended. The woman looked at him with surprise and distrust, but the evident need in her eyes was undeniable. She hesitated before responding, and Lucas, for the first time in a long while, felt the urgency to do something that didn't involve profit or business success. That moment, under the torrential rain, marked the beginning of a transformation that Lucas could never have predicted. He didn't know it yet, but that impulsive decision would change his life in ways he never imagined. Lucas approached the woman, holding a wad of cash he had quickly taken from his wallet. "Here, take this. You can use it to buy what you need," he said, extending the money. The woman, drenched and holding the baby tightly, looked at the money with a mix of sadness and dignity. With a deep sigh, she shook her head, refusing the offer. "I don't need money," she responded with a calm but firm voice. "I just need food for my son and a safe place for us to spend the night." Lucas was surprised by her response. He was used to solving problems with money, but there, in front of that woman, he felt powerless for the first time in years. He put the money back in his wallet, observing the woman more closely. She was visibly tired, but her eyes shone with an unyielding strength. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to hide the incredulity in his voice. "Sarah," she replied, holding his gaze. "And this is my son, Daniel." The baby in Sarah's arms whimpered softly, wrapped in a tattered blanket. Lucas felt moved by an unexpected compassion. He realized that the situation was much more complex than it seemed at first glance. "Come on, I'll take you to a place where you can eat and warm up," said Lucas, feeling a new sense of purpose. Sarah hesitated for a moment, but the need to care for Daniel prevailed. She nodded, and together the three walked towards Lucas's car. The rain was still falling heavily as Lucas drove through the busy streets of the city. He chose a modest restaurant, far from the luxury and ostentation he was used to. He parked the car and helped Sarah get out with Daniel. They entered the restaurant where the welcoming warmth contrasted with the damp cold outside. Sitting at a table in the corner, Lucas called a waiter and asked for a varied menu. "Order whatever you want. The meal is on me," he said to Sarah, who looked around cautiously. She thanked him with a nod and began choosing simple but nutritious dishes for her and Daniel. While they waited for the food, Lucas couldn't help but feel a growing curiosity about Sarah's life. "How did you end up in this situation?" he asked, trying to sound as gentle as possible. Sarah sighed deeply before starting to speak, as if she were organizing her thoughts. "I had a normal life, a career, a house, but things changed quickly," she began, her voice laden with repressed emotions. "My husband passed away 2 years ago, and without his income, I ended up losing our house. I tried everything, but nothing seemed to work." Lucas listened attentively, realizing the weight of her words. Sarah continued, recounting her numerous efforts to find work and the difficulty of supporting Daniel on her own. The food arrived, interrupting Sarah's narrative. While she lovingly fed Daniel, Lucas reflected on what he had heard. He had never imagined that someone with so many difficulties could maintain such dignity. It was something that touched him deeply, beyond shaking his own beliefs and values. Lucas felt a growing responsibility to help, not just in that moment, but in some more meaningful way. He watched Sarah care for Daniel, admiring the strength and resilience she demonstrated. This simple situation, a dinner in a modest restaurant, was becoming a turning point in his life. "Do you have a place to stay tonight?" Lucas asked, interrupting his own thoughts. Sarah shook her head, avoiding his eyes. "You can stay at my house until we find a solution," he offered, surprising himself with the proposal. Sarah looked at him, surprised and grateful, but also cautious. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. Lucas smiled, feeling a human connection he had neglected for a long time. "Let's take it one step at a time," he replied, feeling that, at that moment, his life was beginning to take a new direction. While Sarah fed Daniel, Lucas observed the scene with a mix of curiosity and admiration. He couldn't understand how someone could maintain so much dignity and strength amidst so many adversities. Sarah finished feeding the baby and, noticing Lucas's attentive gaze, took a deep breath, prepared to continue her story. "As I said, everything started 2 years ago," Sarah began, her voice laden with emotions she had kept contained. "My husband David was my partner in everything. We had a comfortable life, not rich, but we had enough. He worked as an engineer and I was a teacher at a public school." Lucas leaned forward, interested. "And what happened?" he asked, gently encouraging her to continue. Sarah smiled sadly and looked at Daniel, who was now sleeping peacefully in her arms. "David fell ill suddenly. It was an aggressive cancer. In a few months he was gone," she said, the pain evident in her voice. "The costs of the treatment were exorbitant. Even with insurance, we had to spend all our savings and sell the house to pay the medical bills. When he passed away, I was alone and penniless." Lucas felt a tightness in his heart upon hearing her story. "It must have been devastating," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Sarah nodded, tears filling her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. "After David's death, I tried to get back on my feet," Sarah continued. "I looked for work in various schools, but no one was hiring. I was also pregnant with Daniel at the time, which made everything even more difficult. When he was born, my priorities changed. He needed me, and I would do anything to ensure he was safe." Lucas felt a wave of respect for Sarah. "And how did you end up on the streets?" he asked, knowing that the story still had more twists. "I lost the temporary job I got at a small store when Daniel fell ill," she explained. "He had a serious infection and needed hospital treatment. I stayed in the hospital with him for days, and when I returned, my job had been filled by someone else. Without income, I was soon evicted from the apartment where we were living. Sarah's narrative was one blow after another, each detail more painful than the last. Since then, we've been surviving on shelters and charity, she said, her voice low but determined. I just want a chance to get back on my feet, to give Daniel a better life. Lucas remained silent for a moment, absorbing everything Sarah had said. Her life seemed like an endless sequence of misfortunes, but her determination and love for her son were unshakable. He felt a growing responsibility, not just for having crossed paths with her that day, but because he knew he could do something to change her situation. Sarah, he began, choosing his words carefully. You deserve more than just surviving. I want to help you find a new opportunity, a new beginning. And it's not charity, it's because I believe you have a lot to offer. Sarah looked at him, surprised and moved. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. Lucas smiled, feeling a genuine human connection, something he had forgotten in his life of business and constant pressures. You don't need to thank me, he replied softly. Sometimes life gives us a second chance when we least expect it, and I think you and Daniel deserve that chance. At that moment, Lucas knew that the decision to help Sarah and Daniel was not just an act of kindness, but a journey of transformation for himself. Lucas parked the car in front of the imposing gate of his house, a modern mansion with elegant lines and large windows that gleamed under the streetlights. He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. Sarah looked at the mansion with a mix of awe and hesitation, while Daniel slept peacefully in her arms. This is where you'll stay for now, Lucas said, trying to sound casual. He opened the gate with a remote control and drove the car down the long driveway to the garage. Sarah got out of the car, adjusting the blanket around Daniel, her eyes wide with the grandeur of the place. Do you live here alone? She asked, evident surprise in her voice. Lucas nodded, feeling a slight embarrassment as he realized the stark contrast between their realities. Yes, since my parents moved to another city, I've had the house, he explained, opening the front door and turning on the lights in the entrance hall. The mansion was even more impressive inside, with a spacious open layout, modern decor, and luxurious furniture. Lucas led Sarah to the living room, where a black leather sofa and comfortable armchairs awaited. Please, make yourselves at home. I'll get some towels and clean clothes for you, he said, disappearing down the hallway. Sarah sat on the sofa, feeling the softness of the upholstery under her tired body. She looked around, trying to absorb the new reality. It was hard to believe that just a few hours ago she was on the street, and now she was in such a safe and comfortable place. She kissed Daniel's forehead, grateful that he was finally sheltered. Lucas returned with a stack of towels and clothes. Here you go. You can use the bathroom at the end of the hallway, he said, indicating the direction. Sarah thanked him and took Daniel to the bathroom, where she began to give him a warm bath. The baby whimpered with fatigue but soon calmed down in the warm water. While Sarah cared for Daniel, Lucas prepared a room for them. He made the bed with clean sheets and placed a soft blanket on it. Once finished, he looked around, satisfied with the result. He wanted Sarah and Daniel to feel welcome and comfortable, at least until they found a more permanent solution. When Sarah returned with Daniel, he was clean and dressed in new clothes. Lucas guided her to the prepared room. You can stay here. I hope it's comfortable, he said. Sarah looked at the room, her eyes shining with gratitude. Lucas, I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice choked with emotion. You've done so much for us in such a short time. Lucas smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced in his business achievements. No need to thank me. I just want you both to be well. As the night progressed, Lucas realized he was also exhausted. He showed Sarah how to use the intercom to call him if she needed anything during the night. Rest well. Tomorrow, we'll figure out what needs to be done, he said, wishing them good night. Back in his room, Lucas collapsed onto his bed, reflecting on the extraordinary day he had had. He never imagined that a simple delay for a meeting could trigger a series of events that would change his life. He felt a growing connection with Sarah and Daniel, a responsibility that went beyond momentary aid. As he closed his eyes, Lucas realized that his life was about to take a new direction. The doors of his house were open, but more importantly, the doors of his heart were also opening, allowing new possibilities and feelings to enter. Sleep came quickly, bringing with it dreams of an uncertain future, but filled with hope and purpose. The next morning, Lucas woke up with the sunlight filtering through his bedroom curtains. He stretched, feeling more refreshed than he expected, and quickly his responsibilities began to weigh on his mind. He remembered the crucial meeting he had missed the previous day. Although he had made the right decision in helping Sarah and Daniel, he couldn't ignore the growing anxiety about the possible repercussions at work. He dressed quickly in an elegant suit and went downstairs, where he found Sarah preparing a simple breakfast in the kitchen. Daniel was sitting in an improvised high chair, playing with a spoon. "Good morning," Lucas said, smiling at the two. "I hope you slept well?" "Yes, very well. Thank you," Sarah replied, smiling back. "I don't know how we will repay all your generosity." Lucas just waved it off, indicating that it wasn't necessary to thank him. He grabbed a cup of coffee, and after a brief breakfast, he left the house, promising Sarah that he would return as soon as possible. When he arrived at the office, Lucas felt a tension in the air. His colleagues cast furtive glances as he passed, and there was an unusual silence in the hallways. He entered his office and turned on his computer, preparing to face the consequences of his absence. A few minutes later, his assistant, Marco, entered the room with a worried expression. "Lucas, we need to talk about yesterday's meeting," he said, closing the door behind him. Lucas nodded, indicating for Marco to continue. "It was complicated. The investors were not happy with your absence." Lucas felt a chill down his spine. "I know it was a problem," he said, "but I had a personal emergency." "What exactly happened?" Marco took a deep breath and began to explain. The meeting had started well, with the team presenting the main points of the project. But when they noticed Lucas's absence, the investors began to question the company's commitment. Some of the investors were ready to withdraw their investments. Marco continued. "It was chaos. We had to improvise to keep things under control." Lucas felt a wave of guilt, but also a sense of determination. He knew he needed to fix this, but he did not regret his decision to help Sarah and Daniel. "Do we have a chance to recover this?" Lucas asked, trying to assess the situation. Marco slowly nodded. "Yes, but it will be difficult. We need to make a new presentation and ensure that you are there to explain your absence and reaffirm our commitment." Lucas spent the rest of the morning reviewing reports and preparing for the reconciliation meeting. He knew he needed to be honest about the reason for his absence, but he also needed to show the investors that his company remained a solid and reliable investment. In the afternoon, the meeting was scheduled. The investors entered the conference room, their expressions serious. Lucas took a moment to take a deep breath before starting. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "Firstly, I would like to apologize for not being present at yesterday's meeting. I had a personal emergency that I could not avoid. However, I want to assure all of you that my commitment to this project and to each of you remains unwavering." The investors listened attentively as Lucas presented the new points of the project, highlighting recent advances and future plans. He spoke with passion and conviction, and gradually, the expressions of the investors began to soften. At the end of the meeting, one of the main investors, Mr. Thompson, stood up. "Lucas, we appreciate your honesty and dedication," he said. "We understand that emergencies happen. We will give this project a second chance, But we expect that something like this does not happen again. Lucas felt a wave of relief and gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I can assure you that I will not disappoint you again, he replied, feeling as if an immense weight had been lifted from his shoulders. When the meeting ended, Lucas returned to his office feeling exhausted but optimistic. He knew there was still a lot of work ahead, but he also knew he had made the right choice in helping Sarah and Daniel. And now, with the investors back on board, he was determined to balance his personal and professional life in a way that reflected his new values and priorities. Lucas returned home exhausted but relieved to have managed to keep the investors on board. As he entered the living room, he found Sarah playing with Daniel on the carpet. The soft laughter of the baby echoed through the room, filling the house with a joy Lucas had not felt in a long time. "Hi, Lucas," Sarah greeted, standing up from the floor with Daniel in her arms. "How was your day?" Lucas smiled tiredly and approached them. "It was a tough day, but in the end everything worked out," he replied, caressing Daniel's head. "And you? How did you spend the day?" "It was good," Sarah said, smiling. "Daniel loved exploring the house, and I did something I hope you don't mind." Lucas raised an eyebrow, curious. "What was it?" Sarah picked up an envelope that was on the table and handed it to him. "While Daniel was sleeping, I did some research on the internet and found out something about you and your family." Lucas opened the envelope and found a copy of an old newspaper article. The headline read, "Young Entrepreneur's Family Involved in Community Actions." He looked at Sarah, confused. "I didn't know your parents were so involved in the community," she explained. "They helped to found several support programs for homeless families and funded community centers." Lucas remained silent, absorbing the information. It was true that his parents had always been active philanthropists, but he had distanced himself from those activities as he focused on building his own empire. "I remember some things," he said slowly, "but I guess I never gave them much importance." Sarah nodded, understanding. "I also found out that there's a community center nearby that they help to fund. They have programs that can help us find a job and stable housing." Lucas looked at her, feeling a mix of emotions. He had always thought of his parents as figures of the past, but now he saw the ongoing relevance of their work. "You did a good job researching," he finally said, smiling. "I think it's a great idea to visit this center. It might be exactly what we need to give you and Daniel a new start." Sarah smiled back, relieved. "Thank you, Lucas. I really believe we can find a way together." As they talked, Lucas's phone rang. He answered quickly, recognizing his father's number. "Hi, Dad," he said, trying to sound casual. "Lucas, we need to talk." The voice on the other end was serious. "It's about your mother." Lucas's heart raced. "What happened, T?" he asked, worried. His father sighed before responding. "She's in the hospital. She had a heart issue. She's stable but needs surgery." Lucas felt a knot in his throat. "I'm going there right now," he said, hanging up quickly. He explained the situation to Sarah, who immediately offered her support. "Go, Lucas. We'll be fine here. Your mother needs you." Lucas thanked her, grabbed his car keys, and headed to the hospital, his heart heavy with worry. At the hospital, he found his father in the waiting room, looking older and more tired than he remembered. "Lucas," his father said, hugging him. "She's stable, but the doctors say the surgery is risky." Lucas nodded, feeling a wave of guilt for having distanced himself so much in recent years. As they waited for news of the surgery, Lucas reflected on everything that had happened recently. The situation with Sarah and Daniel, the revelation about his parents' community work, and now his mother's health. He felt that the universe was sending him a message, an opportunity to reassess his priorities and reconnect with his family. After several anguishing hours, the surgeon finally appeared. The surgery was a success, he said, and Lucas and his father let out sighs of relief. "She will need time to recover, but she is out of danger." Lucas entered the recovery room, where his mother was lying, still weak but conscious. "Hi, Mom," he said, holding her hand. She smiled faintly, her eyes shining with love and recognition. "Lucas, my dear," she whispered. "I knew you would come." As he held his mother's hand, Lucas promised himself that he would do things differently from now on. He knew he had the opportunity to transform his life and that of others, and he was determined to seize this chance. After the hospital visit, Lucas returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. He found Sarah and Daniel in the living room playing together. The baby's laughter echoed through the room, bringing a sense of peace and normalcy he had almost forgotten. Lucas knew it was time to learn more about Sarah's potential. The next morning, during breakfast, Lucas decided to start the conversation. "Sarah, I'd like to know more about your background and professional experiences," he said, trying to sound casual. "I think we can find a way to utilize your skills." Sarah looked at him, surprised but pleased with the interest. "Sure, Lucas, I graduated in business administration and worked for several years in a technology company," she began, while helping Daniel eat. "It was a position I loved because it allowed me to combine my passion for organization with innovation." Lucas was impressed. "And why did you decide to become a teacher afterwards?" he asked, curious to understand her career path. Sarah smiled, reminiscing about the past. "I've always loved teaching. I felt I could make a bigger difference by helping children develop, so I decided to pursue that path. I was a teacher for 5 years before everything changed." Lucas noticed the passion in Sarah's voice and realized how much she had to offer. "That's amazing," he said, feeling inspired. "I'd like to introduce you to some of my colleagues at the company. I think you could contribute a lot to our team." Sarah looked at him, surprised and grateful. "That would be an incredible opportunity, Lucas. But why are you doing all this for us?" Lucas reflected for a moment before responding. "Because I believe everyone deserves a chance to show their true potential. And, honestly, you've made me realize that I can also do more for the community." Later that day, Lucas took Sarah and Daniel to the office. He introduced them to his team and led them to a meeting room where some of his key executives were waiting. "Everyone, this is Sarah," he began confidently. "She has an impressive background in business administration and valuable experience in both the technology sector and education." The executives exchanged curious looks as Sarah introduced herself. She spoke clearly and passionately about her experiences, and Lucas could see the interest growing on his colleagues' faces. "I believe Sarah can help us improve our internal processes and bring a new perspective to our projects," Lucas added, reinforcing his confidence in her. After the presentation, one of the executives, Carla, approached. "Sarah, I'm very impressed with your story and skills," she said. "I think we could use someone with your experience on our innovation team. How about a formal interview tomorrow?" Sarah smiled, emotional. "I would love to, Carla. Thank you so much for the opportunity," she replied, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long time. Lucas watched the interaction with satisfaction, knowing he had made the right choice in supporting Sarah. On the way back home, Lucas felt a new energy in the air. Sarah was radiant, and even Daniel seemed more animated, laughing and babbling in the back seat. "Thank you, Lucas," Sarah said, looking at him with gratitude. "You're really giving us a new chance." Lucas smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart. "You deserve it, Sarah, and I believe this is just the beginning of something very good for all of us." As he drove, he reflected on how that unexpected encounter had changed his life. He now saw the world with new eyes, understanding the value of people and the impact he could have by helping them realize their potential. When they arrived home, Lucas felt a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced in his business achievements. He knew he was on the right path, transforming not only Sarah and Daniel's lives, but also his own. And that, for him, was the greatest victory of all. The next day, Sarah woke up early, feeling a mix of nervousness and excitement. The formal interview with Lucas's innovation team was a unique opportunity, a chance to change not only her life but also Daniel's. She dressed in one of the outfits Lucas had provided and left the room quietly so as not to wake the baby. Lucas was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. "Good morning, Sarah. Ready for the big day?" he asked with an encouraging smile. Sarah nodded, trying to contain her anxiety. "Yes, I'm a bit nervous, but very excited," she admitted, sitting at the table. Lucas served her a cup of coffee and sat beside her. "You'll do great. Trust me," he said confidently. Shortly after, Lucas took her to the office again. As they entered the building, Sarah took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. Lucas accompanied her to the meeting room, where Carla and other team members were already waiting. "Good luck, Sarah," he said, giving her one last encouraging smile before leaving her with the interviewers. The interview began with questions about Sarah's experience and her ideas for the company. She answered confidently, explaining how she could apply her knowledge in administration and technology to improve internal processes and develop new projects. Her passion and expertise were evident, and the interviewers seemed impressed. As Sarah spoke, Lucas watched from a distance, feeling a growing pride. He knew he was witnessing the beginning of something big. After about an hour, the interview ended, and Carla stood up, extending her hand to Sarah. "Thank you for coming, Sarah. We will be in touch soon," she said with a sincere smile. Lucas waited for Sarah in the hallway. "So, how did it go?" he asked as they walked back to the elevator. Sarah smiled, her eyes shining. "I think it went very well." "They seemed interested," she said, feeling a wave of relief and hope. In the following days, life continued normally, but there was a new energy in the air. Lucas continued to support Sarah and Daniel, and the connection between them grew stronger. One day, while Lucas was in a meeting, he received a message from Sarah. "Lucas, Carla just called me. I was accepted into the innovation team." He could barely contain his excitement. He immediately replied with a "Congratulations" and a series of celebration emojis. When he returned home, he found Sarah radiant and Daniel laughing in her arms. "I knew you would get it," Lucas said, hugging her. "This is just the beginning, Sarah." With the new job, Sarah's life began to change rapidly. Lucas helped her find an apartment close to work, ensuring she and Daniel had a safe and comfortable place to live. He also made sure they had everything they needed to start this new phase. Sarah quickly adapted to the new work environment. Her dedication and creativity soon made her a key player on the innovation team. She brought new ideas and approaches, helping the company grow and face challenges with an innovative perspective. As he watched Sarah flourish in her new position, Lucas felt a deep satisfaction. He had not only helped a mother and her son get off the streets, but also discovered a new friend and valuable collaborator. He was increasingly amazed by Sarah's resilience and determination. Over time, the relationship between Lucas and Sarah deepened. They began to spend more time together, sharing dinners, stories, and dreams. The mutual admiration turned into something more, a connection that both knew was special. One evening, while they were walking in the park with Daniel, Lucas stopped and held Sarah's hand. "You changed my life, Sarah," he said, looking into her eyes. "And you changed mine, Lucas," she replied, smiling. At that moment, they both knew they were ready to face any challenge together like a true family. From that day on, the lives of Lucas, Sarah, and Daniel took a new direction, full of hope and possibilities. They were not just survivors of circumstances, but creators of a bright and promising future, united by bonds of love, respect, and gratitude. Lucas, once known only for his ambition and business success, began to feel a profound change within himself. The presence of Sarah and Daniel in his life brought a new perspective, and he found himself questioning old priorities and values. His days, previously focused solely on meetings and goals, now included moments of genuine connection and reflection. One morning, while having coffee on the veranda of his house, Lucas realized how much his routine had changed. He used to start the day reviewing reports and planning strategies, but now he found pleasure in preparing breakfast for Sarah and Daniel, talking about their plans and dreams. Their mere presence made his mornings more meaningful. At work, Lucas's transformation was also evident. His colleagues noticed a change in his approach. He was more accessible, more willing to listen and consider others' ideas. His leadership became more collaborative, inspiring the team to engage more deeply in projects. Lucas, once seen as a demanding boss, was now admired as an inspiring leader. One day during an important meeting, Lucas found himself remembering his mother's words about the importance of helping others. True success, she always said, is not only about achieving your goals, but also about how you use your resources to make a difference in the lives of those around you. Lucas smiled as he realized he finally understood the true meaning of those words. Outside the office, Lucas became actively involved in community programs. He started to visit regularly the community center his parents had helped to found, where he met many families struggling to get back on their feet. Inspired by their strength and resilience, Lucas decided to invest more in initiatives that promoted education and well-being for homeless families. Sarah, observing this transformation, felt a deep admiration for Lucas. He was no longer the arrogant young millionaire she had met in the rain, but a compassionate and generous man. Each day, Lucas demonstrated more empathy and dedication to causes that truly mattered. Sarah knew her influence had been significant, but she recognized that the change came from Lucas's own heart. As the relationship between Lucas and Sarah strengthened, he also began to reconnect with his family. He started visiting his parents more frequently, especially after his mother's recovery. During these visits, Lucas shared his new experiences and learnings, feeling grateful for the opportunity to strengthen family ties. During one of these visits, his mother pulled him aside. "I'm so proud of you, Lucas," she said, holding his hand. "You found the balance between your professional success and human compassion. That is something rare and precious." Lucas moved, just smiled, and hugged his mother. He knew this transformation was a reflection of the love and values she and his father had taught him. At home, Lucas felt a joy he had never experienced before. He played with Daniel in the garden, teaching him to walk and talking about the little miracles of nature. With Sarah, he shared quiet nights, discussing plans for the future and laughing at the little things. The house, once a symbol of his material success, was now a home full of love and life. A significant event in Lucas's transformation was the inauguration of a new support program for homeless families, largely funded by him. In his opening speech, Lucas spoke passionately about the importance of giving opportunities and believing in people's potential. He cited Sarah and Daniel as living examples of resilience and transformation, moving everyone present. At the end of his speech, Lucas looked at Sarah and Daniel, who were in the front row. He felt immense pride and a deep connection with everyone there. He knew his journey was just beginning, but he was ready to face the future with a renewed heart and a clear vision of what truly mattered. Lucas's transformation was not just about the external changes in his life, but an internal revolution that made him a better, more complete, and truly happy human being. He had learned that true success is measured not only by material achievements, but by the positive impact one has on the lives of others. And in that sense, Lucas knew he was on the right path to a bright and purposeful future. On a warm, sunny afternoon, Lucas decided it was time for complete reconciliation with his family. He had spent too much time focused on his own successes and, in doing so, distanced himself from those who loved him most. The recent transformation in his life, influenced by Sarah and Daniel, made him realize the priceless value of family bonds. He organized a dinner at his parents' house, inviting everyone for a special evening. When he arrived at the old family home, Lucas felt a wave of nostalgia. The house, with its ivy-covered walls and well-kept garden, seemed a haven of happy memories. He entered, carrying a bouquet of flowers for his mother and a bottle of wine for his father. "Lucas, my son," his mother exclaimed, hugging him warmly. We were so looking forward to this night." The dinner was a feast prepared with love. The table was full of Lucas's childhood favorite dishes, made with his mother's loving touch. As everyone sat down, Lucas looked around, feeling the familiarity and love that had been missing for so long. Sarah and Daniel were by his side, partaking in this reunion that meant so much. As the night progressed, conversations flowed naturally. They talked about Lucas's childhood days, the pranks, and the life lessons learned. They laughed at funny stories and fondly remembered those who had passed away. Lucas felt enveloped by the warmth of these memories, and a deep peace filled his heart. In a moment of silence, Lucas raised his glass and looked at his parents. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I've been thinking a lot about what's really important in life, and I realized that nothing is more valuable than family. I'm sorry for distancing myself, for missing so many moments. I'm here now, committed to reconnecting and valuing each of you." His father, with tear-filled eyes, smiled and raised his glass in response. "Lucas, we are very proud of the man you have become. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to recognize and correct the path. We are happy to have you back." The emotion in the air was palpable, and everyone toasted to reconciliation and a new beginning. After dinner, as the family spread out in the living room, Lucas took a moment alone with his mother in the kitchen. "Mom, I wanted you to know how much your words and actions have always guided me, even when I didn't realize it," he said. "Right? Holding her the rear sounder in upper hand door." She smiled, squeezing his hand. "I always knew you had a good heart, Lucas. You just needed some time to find your way." Lucas also had an honest conversation with his father. They sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Dad, I want to get more involved in the community projects you and Mom started. I feel I can make a difference now," Lucas said, looking up at the sky. His father nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. "There is always room to do good, son, and I'm glad you're joining us." At the end of the night, as they prepared to leave, Lucas felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. He hugged his parents tightly, promising to visit more often and keep in touch. Sarah and Daniel, now an integral part of his life, were also warmly welcomed by the family. During the drive back home, Lucas reflected on the night. Reconciliation with his family not only healed old wounds but also opened doors to a future full of love and mutual support. He knew this new phase in his life would be marked by a balance between his professional responsibilities and his commitment to those he loved. Lucas felt that this personal transformation was the beginning of a virtuous cycle. Inspired by Sarah's strength and Daniel's joy, he was determined to cultivate and nurture all the important relationships in his life. Family reconciliation was the first of many steps toward a life full of meaning and purpose. Arriving home, Lucas put Daniel to sleep and sat next to Sarah on the couch. "It was an amazing night," he said, holding her hand. Sarah smiled and kissed his forehead. "I'm so happy for you, Lucas. Your family is wonderful, and it's clear that the love between you all is very strong." He nodded, feeling complete. He knew he was on the right path, and that with Sarah and Daniel by his side, he could face any challenge the future might bring. After his family reconciliation, Lucas was more determined than ever to make a lasting difference. He decided that his next step would be to actively invest in programs that helped homeless families, inspired by Sarah and Daniel's story. He knew he had the resources and influence needed to create significant impact and was willing to use all of it for good. First, Lucas met with community leaders and social work experts to better understand the needs and challenges faced by homeless families. He spent hours talking to people who dedicated their lives to helping the less fortunate, absorbing everything he could about public policies, support strategies, and effective intervention methods. With this knowledge, Lucas decided to launch a new philanthropic fund, the Hope and Future Fund, which would focus on providing resources for shelters, education programs, and professional training. The goal was not only to provide a roof for these families, but also to equip them with the tools needed to rebuild their lives. During a meeting with his work team, Lucas shared his vision. "I want our company to go beyond financial success. We need to be an agent of positive change in society. With the Hope and Future Fund, we will invest in people and communities, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential." His collaborators, inspired by his passion, offered immediate support and began working on the logistics to launch the fund. Lucas organized a launch event for the fund, inviting business leaders, politicians, and community members to learn about the initiative. Sarah was the main speaker, sharing her story of struggle and resilience, moving everyone present. "If it weren't for Lucas and his support, I don't know where Daniel and I would be now. This fund has the power to change lives, just as ours was changed," she said, drawing applause and tears from the audience. At the end of the event, several companies and individuals pledged substantial donations to the fund. Lucas felt deep satisfaction seeing the generosity and enthusiasm of people in supporting the cause. He knew that was just the beginning, but he was confident that together, they could make a real difference. With the fund's resources, Lucas and his team began implementing various programs. They funded the renovation of shelters, ensuring they were dignified and welcoming places for families. They also established partnerships with schools and educational institutions to offer scholarships and training courses, helping adults find stable and well-paying jobs. One of the most impactful initiatives was the creation of a mentorship program, where successful professionals dedicated their time to mentoring young people from homeless families. Lucas, Sarah, and even some of their colleagues actively participated, offering guidance, support, and hope to those in need. On a sunny afternoon, Lucas visited one of the shelters funded by the fund. As he walked through the renovated hallways, he was approached by a teenager named Anna, who held a sketchbook. "Mr. Lucas, I just wanted to thank you. Because of your fund, I'm going to start studying graphic design next week," she said, her eyes shining with excitement. Lucas smiled, feeling a wave of joy. "I'm very happy for you, Anna. I'm sure you're going to do amazing things." Returning home that night, Lucas reflected on the impact they were making. He knew there was still a lot of work ahead, but the results were already visible and tangible. He felt grateful for the opportunity to use his wealth and influence for something so significant. Over time, the Hope and Future Fund continued to grow, attracting more donations and support. Lucas and Sarah became respected figures in the community, known not only for their generosity, but also for their genuine commitment to social transformation. Sarah and Daniel's story inspired many others, showing that with support and opportunities, anyone could overcome adversity. During a family gathering, Lucas shared with his parents the fund's achievements. They listened with pride and admiration, recognizing the depth of Lucas's transformation. "You found your true purpose, son," his father said, "and you're doing something truly extraordinary." His mother agreed, adding, "We're very proud of you, Lucas. Your grandmother would be beaming with happiness if she were here." That night, while walking along the beach with Sarah and Daniel, Lucas felt a deep connection with the universe. The stars shone in the sky, reflecting the infinite possibilities the future held. He held Sarah's hand and smiled at Daniel, feeling complete and fulfilled. "Let's keep doing this," he said, looking at Sarah. "Let's keep helping, inspiring, and transforming lives. And we'll do it together, as a family." Sarah smiled and nodded, feeling the same determination and hope. Lucas knew that the road ahead would be full of challenges, but he was ready to face them. He had found his true purpose, and with Sarah and Daniel by his side, he was ready to create a bright future for everyone. With the Hope and Future Fund in full operation and the impact already visible in the lives of many families, Lucas felt he had reached a crucial point in his own journey. He had experienced a profound transformation, not only in his professional life, but also in his heart. The love and gratitude he felt for Sarah and Daniel were palpable. and he knew it was time to take the next step in their relationship. On a quiet night, Lucas prepared a special dinner at his house. The aroma of delicious dishes filled the air as he set the table with candles and flowers. He wanted it to be an unforgettable night for Sarah. When she arrived with Daniel in her arms, her eyes widened with surprise. "Lucas, what is all this, Yikorkur?" she asked, smiling. "I want to celebrate the life we've built together," Lucas said, taking Daniel in his arms and kissing him on the forehead. "And there's something very important I need to tell you." Sarah felt her heart race, but she kept smiling as they sat down at the table. The dinner was filled with laughter and shared memories, a celebration of the love that had grown between them. After dinner, while Daniel played on the living room carpet, Lucas took Sarah's hand and led her to the garden where the starry sky created a perfect backdrop. "Sarah, from the moment I met you in that rain, you changed my life in ways I could never have imagined," Ki-i-tiki, looking into her eyes. "You taught me about resilience, compassion, and the true meaning of family." Sarah felt tears begin to form in her eyes as Lucas continued. "I love you, Sarah. I love Daniel as if he were my own son. And I want to spend the rest of my life with you, building a future full of love and purpose." He then knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sarah, will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she nodded vigorously. "Yes, Lucas. Yes, I will." He placed the ring on her finger, and they embraced, feeling an indescribable joy. Daniel, noticing the emotion, ran to them, hugging them tightly. It was a perfect moment, a promise of a new beginning. Lucas and Sarah's wedding was an intimate celebration, surrounded by family and close friends. The ceremony took place in the garden of her parents' house, a place full of memories and love. As they exchanged vows, both knew they were embarking on a new journey, strengthened by the support and experiences they had shared. In the following months, their lives became a symphony of happy and meaningful moments. Lucas continued his work with the fund, while Sarah excelled in her new position at the company. They found a perfect balance between their careers and family life, creating a home where Daniel could grow surrounded by love and opportunities. Lucas, Sarah, and Daniel began to explore new adventures together. They traveled, learned, and grew as a family, enjoying every moment. Each day brought new discoveries and new reasons to smile. Lucas's transformation from an arrogant young millionaire to a compassionate and dedicated man was evident in every gesture and decision he made. One day, while strolling through a park, Daniel ran to a group of children playing and began interacting with them. Lucas and Sarah watched with pride. "He's so happy," Sarah said, holding Lucas's hand. "And it's all thanks to you." "No, Sarah," Lucas replied, squeezing her hand. "It's thanks to us. We are a team, a family, and I am eternally grateful for everything you and Daniel have brought into my life." As the sun set, they sat on a bench, watching Daniel play. Lucas reflected on how life had changed in such unexpected and wonderful ways. He knew they would still face challenges, but he felt ready for anything with Sarah and Daniel by his side. The story of Lucas, Sarah, and Daniel was a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and love. They had overcome difficulties, faced fears, and built something truly beautiful together. And as the future continued to unfold, Lucas knew he was exactly where he should be, surrounded by love and with a clear purpose, ready to create a lasting legacy of kindness and hope. That night, as they put Daniel to bed, Lucas and Sarah lay down together, embraced. "We are just beginning, you know," Lucas said, looking into Sarah's eyes. She smiled and nodded. "Yes, Lucas, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us." They closed their eyes, feeling complete and at peace, ready to face whatever life brought them together. If you enjoyed this incredible story, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you love exciting chronicles and want to support our channel to keep bringing more quality content, consider contributing through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the first pinned comment. Your help is essential for us to keep improving. Thank you for your support. Until the next exciting chronicle.